Chapter 1. The Llama. Kim was a 13-year-old orphan who spent most of his time in the streets. Although he was dark-skinned from the sun and usually spoke Hindustani, he was English. His father had been a sergeant in a regiment of the British Army called the Mavericks, and his mother had been the servant of a colonel. His father had left him 3 documents. Kim kept them in a little cloth bag tied to a string around his neck. 2 of them showed that his father had been a member of a special club. The 3rd was Kim's birth certificate. When Kim's father was drunk, he often said to Kim, "My boy, these 3 documents will someday make you a man. Never lose them. A colonel on a horse will come with a great regiment, and he will make you a better man than me. There will be 900 wonderful devils, whose god is a bull on a green field. 2 other men will prepare the way for the colonel." Kim often went on missions to deliver letters or spy, and when he did this, he changed into the clothes of a Hindu or a Muslim. Kim knew how to travel secretly across the city of Lahore. Everywhere in Lahore, people called Kim Little Friend of the World. One day, Kim was sitting on top of the giant cannon called Zam-Zamar, opposite the Lahore Museum, or Wonder House as the Indians called it. A little Muslim boy called Abdullah shouted at Kim, "Off! Off! Let me up!" Kim shouted insults at the little boy.
"Let me up!"
shouted a little Hindu boy named Chota Lal. Kim shouted some more insults at this other friend. Then he stopped his game for a moment because he saw a very strange man. This man was almost 6 feet tall and dressed in red.
"Who is that?"
Kim said to his friend. "Perhaps it is a man," said Abdullah.
"Without a doubt,"
replied Kim.
"But he's not like any man I've ever seen in India."
"A priest, perhaps,"
said Chota Lal, because the man carried a rosary.
"Look, he's going into the Wonder House."
The old man walked towards the boys.
"Children, what is that big house?"
he asked in Hindustani.
"The Wonder House,"
said Kim.
"Ah, the Wonder House. Can anyone go in?"
asked the man.
"Anyone can go in, it says so on the door,"
said Kim.
"Without payment?"
"I go in and out. I am no banker,"
laughed Kim.
"I am an old man. I did not know,"
he said, and turned towards the museum.
"Where is your house? Have you come far?"
Kim asked. "Are you from China?" asked Abdullah.
"I come from the hills,
he said sadly,
where the air and water are fresh and cool. Have you heard of Tibet? I am not Chinese, but Tibetan. I am a Lama, or as you say in India, a guru, or religious teacher."
"A guru from Tibet?"
said Kim.
"I have never seen one of those."
"We are Buddhists, and I am going to see the 4 holy places before I die. Now you, who are children, know as much as I know who am old."
He smiled at the boys. Then the Lama asked,
"Is it true that there are many images in the Wonder House?"
"Yes,"
answered Kim.
"and there is a Sahib with a white beard. Come, I will show you."
The boy and the old man went into the great building. They saw hundreds of sculptures and pictures from Buddhist temples. Then they came to one of Buddha on a lotus.
The Lord, it is the Buddha himself,"
the Lama said with great emotion.
"My pilgrimage has begun well."
"And there is the Sahib,"
said Kim, pointing to an Englishman with a white beard. The Lama took out a piece of paper with a name on it and gave it to the Englishman.
"Yes, that is my name. Welcome, Lama from Tibet,"
said the Englishman. The two men began to talk about Tibet and Buddhism. Kim lay down and slept for a bit. When he woke up, he heard the Lama telling a story about the young Buddha.
You see,
said the Lama,
when our Lord Buddha was a young man, he was in a competition with bows and arrows. He shot his arrow farther than anybody. When the arrow finally hit the ground, water came up and became a river. Now anybody who goes in that river washes away all sin.
Where will you go to look for your holy river?
asked the Englishman.
First I will go to Benares and ask a Jain priest. He may be able to tell me the way,
said the Lama.
And how will you eat?
asked the Englishman.
Before, I had a disciple, or chela, as you call them here. He begged for me, but sadly he died. I must do it myself now.
The old Lama and the old Englishman talked some more and then said goodbye. The Lama walked outside and sat under Zamzama in the shade. Kim followed him.
What are you going to do now?
asked Kim.
I am going to beg. I am quite hungry,
answered the Lama.
How do you beg in this city? Quietly or speaking?
Oh, you must speak,
answered Kim.
But let me go and beg for you. I know the people of this city.
So Kim took the Lama's begging bowl and left. In a short time, Kim came back with some hot vegetable curry, a fried cake and some rice. Both he and the Lama ate. After their meal, the Lama, who was an old man, fell asleep. Kim went to his secret place and got his Hindu clothes and put them on. Chapter 2. Mahbub Ali. The Lama did not wake until the evening. He looked around and felt confused. He began to cry loudly.
What has happened?
said Kim, dressed in his disguise.
Has somebody robbed you?
My new chela has gone.
What kind of man was he?
asked Kim.
He was a boy,
answered the Lama, and he told Kim about the Wonder House, his old chela, and his journey in search of the River of the Arrow. Kim was amazed because he knew that the old man told the truth. In India, a traveller never told the truth to a stranger. It was not safe.
But who are you?
asked the Lama.
Your chela,
answered Kim.
and I will go with you to Benares. I have never met anybody like you before.
Do you know where the river is?
asked the Lama.
No, I don't,
replied Kim.
but I will look for a bull, a red bull on a green field who will help me.
So, let's go to Benares,
said the Lama.
No, it's almost night, and it's too dangerous to travel,
said Kim.
I'll take you to a place where we can sleep.
Kim guided the Lama through the crowded and noisy streets. Finally, they arrived at the Kashmir Sarai, the place where the horse dealers from Afghanistan came. The air was filled with the sounds of people, horses and camels. They arrived at the place of Mahbub Ali, a Pashtun who dyed his beard red to hide his age. Kim had often gone on missions for him. Mahbub Ali trusted Kim because Kim lied with great skill to others, but Kim never lied to him. Mahbub sat on cushions and smoked a silver hookah.
A llama! A red llama! What are you doing in this part of the world?
shouted Mahbub. The Lama held out his begging bowl.
I do not give food to Tibetans. Go to my servants. One of them is a Buddhist. He may help you,
shouted Mahbub.
Go,
said Kim, and gently pushed the Lama towards Mahbub's servants.
Go,
said Mahbub Ali to Kim.
You too can eat with the servants.
please. My father is dead. My mother is dead. My stomach is empty.
cried Kim in his saddest voice.
Go to my servants,
replied Mahbub.
Oh, Mahbub Ali. Don't you recognise me?
Asked Kim in English. The horse dealer was not at all surprised.
Little friend of the world,
he said.
What is this all about?
Nothing. I am now that holy man's disciple, and we are going on a pilgrimage together. To Benares, he says. He is mad, and I am tired of Lahore city.
Why have you come to me?
Asked Mahbub.
Well, I cannot travel without money, of course, and so,
said Kim with a smile.
I came to you.
Mahbub Ali smiled too and thought quickly. Kim's arrival was very fortunate because Mahbub was also a secret agent for the British. His official name was C25-1B. He collected information in the north during his travels as a horse dealer. Now he had very important information about 5 kings in the north who were making plans against the British. He had to send this information to a certain Englishman in Umballa, to the south.
Well, I will give you some money,
he said to Kim.
If you carry a message for me to Umballa, to a British officer, you will say to him, the white stallion is the very best, and he will know you come from me.
Mahbub quickly gave Kim a piece of paper and 3 silver rupees. That was a lot of money, and so Kim understood that this was a dangerous mission. He decided that he and the Lama should begin their journey immediately. Chapter 3. The Tea Rain. It was still dark when Kim and the Lama arrived at the Lahore train station. It looked like a fort. Everything was dark. Hundreds and hundreds of people lay on the ground sleeping.
This is the work of devils,
said the Lama, who was afraid of the big, dark building.
This is where the tea rain comes,
explained Kim.
And over there is where you buy the tickets.
Here,
said the Lama, and gave Kim his purse filled with rupees. Kim was amazed by his incredible simplicity and trust. Just then, the 3:25 a.m. train came in. All the people got up from the floor of the station. Women called their families together. Street sellers shouted what they were selling, and policemen shouted. Kim went and bought 2 tickets, one to Umballa for the Lama, and one to the town of Amritsar. Amritsar was the next stop on the train to Umballa, and Kim was not going to spend money for something as ridiculous as a train ticket. Kim and the Lama hesitated in front of a crowded 3rd-class carriage.
Maybe we should walk,
the Lama said timidly. A big Sikh man looked out of the carriage and said, Is he afraid? Do not be afraid. I remember when I was afraid of the terrain. Come in.
I am not afraid,
said the Lama.
Is there room for 2?
There is not room for even a mouse,
said the wife of a Hindu farmer.
Oh, mother of my son, we can make room,
said her husband, who wore a blue turban.
Come in,
said a fat businessman. There were also a couple of soldiers and a young woman from the town of Amritsar. Kim and the Lama went in and sat on the ground. The train started, and soon it arrived in Amritsar, where a guard came to check the tickets.
Get off now. Your ticket is for Amritsar,
said the guard to Kim.
This holy man is like my father, my mother,
cried Kim.
He will die without my help.
But the guard took him off the train.
I am very poor. My father is dead. My mother is dead. If I am left here, who will look after the old man?
Cried Kim to the other passengers.
Is no one generous? Will no one help us?
What is this?
Said the Lama.
He is my chela. He must come with me. If it is only a question of money, I have...
Be quiet,
whispered Kim quickly to the Lama.
Are we so rich?
Just then the girl from Amritsar offered to pay for Kim's ticket. Her mother, she said, was from the mountains where the Lama came from. The rest of the journey went well. They talked, joked, ate, and generally enjoyed each other's company. The wife of the Hindu farmer even offered Kim and the Lama a place to sleep in Umballa. Kim, of course, accepted. When they arrived in Umballa, Kim left the llama with the Hindu farmers and went off to look for the bungalow of Mahbub Ali's English officer. He had no trouble finding it. He hid behind some bushes and watched the officer on the veranda.
"Protector of the poor,"
said Kim to get the man's attention. The man moved towards Kim.
"Mahbub Ali says,"
continued Kim.
What does Mahbub Ali say?
"the white stallion is the very best."
Answered Kim.
Are you certain?
Asked the officer.
"Yes,"
Said Kim, and threw the paper at the man's feet. The officer quickly picked up the paper and threw a few coins towards the bushes. Kim was happy to be paid, but he was also very curious. This was becoming quite an adventure, and so he waited to see what would happen. He saw the surprised look of the officer as he read the note, and soon an important older officer came out on the veranda. They began to talk.
It is not a question of weeks. It is a question of days, hours almost. I knew it would happen, but this confirms it,
said the older officer.
How many soldiers will we need?
Asked Mahbub's officer.
8,000 should be enough,
said the older officer.
So it means war.
No, punishment,
said the older officer.
But perhaps C-25 lied,
suggested the young officer.
No, his information confirms what others have said. I thought he was coming. It's punishment, not war.
Kim left quietly and went back to the llama. He was very proud and excited to be part of such important events. The next day, Kim and the llama began their walk across the countryside through miles and miles of vegetable gardens. They checked every stream they saw to be certain it was not the river of the Arrow. Each time they walked through a village, dogs came out and barked at them. The villagers asked them what they wanted, and the llama gave his simple and sincere answer.
We are looking for a river that washes away all sins. Is there a river like that near here?
Sometimes men laughed at him, but generally they listened to the llama's story and then offered him a place in the shade, a drink of milk, and a meal. The women were always kind, and the little children were like children all over the world, sometimes shy and sometimes not. The first evening they stopped to rest in a village with mud walls and mud roofs. They met the headman and priest of the village, and they all talked as the cattle came back for the night and the women prepared the last meal of the day. After hearing of the llama's search for the river, the priest said,
6 miles to the west is the great road to Calcutta.
But I want to go to Benares,
said the llama.
It goes to Benares too,
continued the priest.
It crosses all the rivers and streams in this part of India. You can test each stream that it crosses.
Very good,
said the llama, who was very impressed by this plan.
We will begin tomorrow.
After a minute or two of silence, the llama said,
Do you see my chela? He too has a search. He is looking for a bull, a red bull on a green field that will someday bring him to honor. He is, I think, a kind of a spirit. He was sent to me to help me in my search. His name is Friend of All the World.
A kind of a spirit?
laughed the priest.
"Well, no,"
replied Kim with a smile.
"because I am hungry, and spirits don't eat, do they? But I do know something important about the future."
What is that? asked the headman.
"War,"
said Kim. He remembered what the 2 officers had said.
That is easy to say,
said a deep voice.
There are always wars along the border of India, I know.
It was the voice of an old man who had served the British government in the days of the mutiny. Later, the government had rewarded him with some land near this village. He was even respected by the English officials, who often came to visit him.
"But this will be a great war. A war of 8,000,
cried Kim, as the other people of the village came to listen.
British or Indian soldiers?
asked the old man.
British soldiers,
guessed Kim. He was beginning to enjoy his performance very much.
Do you know the man who gives the orders to begin a war?
Continued Kim.
I have seen him.
Answered the old man.
Would you know him again?
Asked Kim.
Yes, I have known him since he was just a young lieutenant.
Said the old man.
Well then,
Said Kim, and he began to do a wonderful imitation of the commanding officer at the bungalow. He finished his performance by saying,
not war, but punishment.
The old man was amazed.
Yes, that is the great man. You really do know the future.
Kim then listened as the old man told tales of brave young captains and the mutiny.